With me now is Greg Northey. He's Vice President of Corporate Affairs with Pulse Canada, which represents thousands of crop producers. Greg, good morning. Thanks so much for being with us. What is the impact on growers?
Yeah, we're tremendously frustrated and disappointed in this state of affairs. So farmers are harvesting their crops right now, and their expectation was that they would be able to move them. They have contracts to fulfill, and it's very important that off the combine they're able to sell the crops for cash flow. And so, as you heard, nothing is going to move. Wish we had an alternative, but the reality is that there's just no place for these crops to go.
And I understand the timing really couldn't be worse.
No, it couldn't be worse. Farmers have been working all summer and spring to grow the crop, and now is the time when it comes off. And so, it's not just farmers. It's the realities with the agri-food supply chain is that we have hundreds of small and medium-sized businesses that process these crops that in small towns and across this country. And so, it's farmers will feel it, but everyone will feel it. Thousands of employees are going to be, essentially locked out of the economy as a result of this decision.
Is there an alternative to rail?
It'd be nice to say there was. I mean, there's the ability to do some trucking, but the reality is when you look at the entire resource set of natural resources that move on rail, there's just not enough trucks to make it happen. So you'll have some ability to move some crops to processing facilities or mills or that kind of thing. But the reality is there is no alternative. It's not possible to move what we usually move 95% of our, tens of millions of tons of grain by truck. It's just not possible.
You tell us off the top that this is a frustrating situation, Greg. Are you more frustrated with the union, with the companies? Where do your feelings lie, and what are you hearing from crop producers on that?
Yeah, look, the collective bargaining process is meant to bring the two sides together for them to be able to come to a deal. And obviously, both sides will use economic leverage to try and improve their positioning. But the reality is that the entire economy is being leveraged and being put on the table and being held hostage by this. And so while that's somewhat understandable, the reality is that it's the government's responsibility. If we're not seeing movement in a collective bargaining process this important that is taking out this much of the Canadian economy, it's the government's responsibility to intervene, and they have those powers. And it's not just the government, it's the opposition as well. Everyone has essentially abdicated their responsibility to represent the vast majority of Canadians and the Canadian economy to make sure that something like this doesn't happen. So for us, we need that government action because clearly the two sides can't solve this on their own.
Do you think engineers, conductors, and yard workers should be considered essential workers?
Well, when you look at the impact that this is going to have, when you look at how it's going to spread throughout the economy, it's going to impact consumers and jobs everywhere and cost the economy this much money. I think there is a case to be made that from an economic harm standpoint, in a situation like this where we have both railways, that they are essential. They're quite frankly essential. There's so many Canadians that rely on this for their own livelihoods, that for the small, basically the small self-interest of three parties to hold all of them hostage is not ideal.
Greg Northey is the Vice President of Corporate Affairs with Pulse Canada, which represents thousands of crop producers. Greg, really appreciate you being with us today.